Everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. My name is Inka. In today's class we're going to be making this gown, and here are the measurements we'll be using for the class. So let's get started. You'll be needing your fabric, your lining, your stay, breast cup, optional though, thread. Then you'll be needing your elastic thread. And also a machine zipper. So the first step I'm going to do is to fuse this lining with the stay. Then I'm drafting the front first. I'll fold my fabric into two. Then if you like, you can just minus, since it's going to be off shoulder, you can just minus whatever you want directly. But I'm going to start from the beginning for better understanding. So first, I'll measure down the length of my armhole, my nipple point, my underbust, my waist length, plus half-inch seam allowance. Then I'll extend the lines. So since we're making an off shoulder, from the starting point, I'm going to be minusing 6 inches. If you like, you can do 5 inches if you don't want it to be too revealing, or 4. Alright, so but I'm minusing 6 inches. Then I'll extend the line. So this part is no longer part of the pattern. So on my armhole line, I'm going to input my bust measurement divided by 4. Then on my waistline, I'm going to input my waist measurements divided by 4. Then I'll connect the points together. I have a tutorial on how to draft off shoulder. You can go and check that out. Then I'll go to my nipple point and I'll input my nipple to nipple distance divided by 2 plus half. So nipple to nipple is 8 divided by 2, that's 4 plus half, that's 4.5. Then I'll roll the line down to the waistline. And at this inner part, I'm going to take that of ½ inch on this side of the line. And at the other side, I'll take my darts. I'll take 2 inches. That depends on the calculation. I already explained it in that off-shoulder tutorial, so go and watch that for better understanding. Alright, so my nipple to nipple distance here is 4.5. I'll put it at the upper part and I'll add 1 inch to that. That will be 5.5, and I'll make a point. Then I'll connect it back to the nipple point. Alright, so the next thing now is just to connect the points together. You roll it straight to the waistline from under bust, and then you connect it to the nipple point. And at this other side, you're going to use your French cuff to connect it with a cuff to the nipple point. Then after that, on this upper part, you're going to measure 1.5 inches this way. You can do 2, depends on your bust measurement. So you use the French cuff again to connect it this way. So from where the dart leg stops, you're going to measure 1 inch further this way. Then after that, you can confirm and put your measurements. I already put the bust measurement divided by 4. So the next thing is to add your seam allowance. Then on the waistline, you measure the distance of the dart and then you replace it. The distance of the dart here is 2.5, so you replace the 2.5. Then after that, you put the seam allowance. Then after that, you just connect it to get that. Then from this 1 inch extension, you connect it to the armhole. Alright, so when that is done, at this center panel, for it to match with the side panel, you need to increase it by 0.75 upward. Then you roll it this way, so that by the time you're sewing the two pieces together, they can match properly. That's the essence of this. So you can decide the shape you want for it, but for that style is a V, so I'm going to be doing that. So from my armhole length, I just come up by 1 inch, then I connect it back to the beginning of the dart leg this way. Can we see? That's the shape for the neckline. So the next thing now is just to cut it out, but before then, you fold the main fabric into 2 and just place the lining on top of it so that you can cut it together. So I've cut it out. So the next thing now is to shape the side seam. So at the side seam on the waist length, you come up by 1 inch this way, and then you're going to roll it to the dart leg. Can you see? Just roll it and connect it this way. This is just to allow it to balance well on your body. Then you trim it off. So if you open it up, this is how it looks. This is the lining, and this is the main fabric. So the next thing we are going to be cutting now is to be replacing that center panel so that we can form the style we are illustrating. So you take the center panel, I'm trying to cut off the surface so that it doesn't fall into my design. All right, so you take the center piece. This is the center panel. Can you see? So you tilt it this way, and then from the neckline you ensure you have 1 inch, just 1 inch this way. Can you see? You measure 1 inch. Then after that, just roll it straight the way I'm showing you, and then you can just cut it out. It's very simple and easy. All you need is just the center panel for your dart. Then you trace the shape. The shape remains the same. Can you see? So this is what we'll be using for the center panel now. So make sure you use your chalk to note the position of the underbust on the main fabric, and then from the starting point you can measure 2.5 inches downward. Measure 2.5 inches downward and make a point there as well. So from that 2.5 inches point to the underbust, that is where you're going to be using the elastic thread to gather. So I put my notch. Can you see? This is how the center piece will look like. So you use the elastic thread to gather it from that 2.5 inches to the underbust. Hope it's clear. Just use your chalk to note that position, and that's all. So we're going to be cutting out the back. So I'll place my fabric into 2 folds, and I also put the lining on top of it, folded into 2 as well. I'll measure my zip allowance from my guideline. I already wrote my guideline. I'll roll my zip allowance. My zip allowance for this project is 1.5 inch. All right, so since we're making off shoulder and we might not stitch from the front, so I'll place the 6 on top of my guideline. I'll measure down the length of my armhole and my waist length. Then with my allowance, then I'll extend the lines. My waist length is 17 inches for the front. With allowance, that will be 17.5. But for the back, I just use 16.5 because we already shaped the front side. We already removed 1 inch from the side seam of the front. So that's why I use 16.5 for the back. Alright, so I'll move on to this point. I'm going to input my shoulder measurements here. My shoulder measurement is 8 inches, but because it's off shoulder, I minus 2 from that and I measure 6 inches instead. Then I reshape my zip allowance so that it will balance well. From the beginning, I come in by 1/2 inch and then I blend it back upward this way. This is just to prevent the zip from bulging. So this is my new zip allowance. The next thing now is to input my circumference measurement. So on my armhole length, I'll input my bust measurements divided by 4 plus my same allowance. Then on the waist length, I will input my waist measurement divided by 4 plus my dart and then plus my seam allowance. Then I'll connect it together. Then from the shoulder, I'll blend it to the armhole line this way. So for the back neckline, I come down by 1.5 inches this way, and then I blend it like this. Then don't forget to also input your dart. From the zip allowance, you measure your nipple to nipple distance, and then you roll it to the chest line, that is your armhole line. Then you take that of 1/2 inch on both sides of the line, and that's it. After that, you cut it out. Don't forget to reshape the zip allowance and cut off the excess like that. Then you put your notching. Then you also notch the darts, notch the position of the darts, and that's it. So moving on, we're going to be cutting the sleeve. For the sleeve, I folded my fabric into 4 like a cone, like a triangle this way. Then I measure 10 inches from any point. I just look for where I can get the 10 inches. So I measure the 10 inches and roll it. And from there, you can measure the length of your sleeve, but I'm not going to be doing that. So I'll just place my pattern. I'm using the back pattern here. I place it on top of the 10 inches point that I mark earlier. I just place the tip like that, and then I trace out the shape of the armhole. I trace up the shape of the armhole. Then where this armhole stop, this is where the armhole stop. You measure 2 inches downward from where the armhole shape stops. You measure it like that. So automatically, that is the length of your sleeve. So from the tip of the triangle, I measure down to where I have that my point. Then I rotate what I have. I hope it's clear. If you don't understand it, let me know in the comment section. Ask your question and I'll reply you. Then after that, I cut it out. Alright, so this is the sleeve. You'll be gathering it with elastic thread this way, both up and down. And that's all. So I'm going to show you how to sew it now. This is my elastic thread. I'll reel the elastic thread onto the bobbin like this. So just take your reeler and then you roll your elastic on your reeler the way I'm showing you. When you're doing it, don't stretch it, don't stretch it this way. No, don't do that. So just gently you reel it the way I'm showing you, and that's it. You keep it aside and bring out your bobbin case, popularly called shuttle. Then you put the reeler inside. You put the reeler with the elastic thread inside. If after putting the reeler inside the shuttle, the elastic thread is not coming out freely, there's one little bolt here. Just use your screwdriver to loosen it a bit so that the elastic thread can be coming out freely. Alright, so you keep it back under the machine. The upper thread is still going to be your normal sewing thread, just your normal regular sewing thread. That's what is going to be at the upper part. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do now, you can see this is the front pattern. This is it. I'm going to be working with the center piece of the front first. You know, we already note some position on it. We measure from the starting point 2.5 inches and put a shock, and also we note the under bust. All right, so I'm going to transfer that shocking to the right side. You transfer the shock to the right side. That's the under bust, and that's the position for 2.5 inches from the starting point. So from these 2 points, you are going to sew it so that the elastic thread can gather it. Don't forget the elastic thread is inside the bobbin case under the machine, while the normal thread is on top of the machine. All right. All right, so this is it. We already used the elastic thread to gather that points. All right, so the next thing now is to attach this two sides panel. You attach this two side panel. And don't forget to remove the elastic thread from under the machine. So you remove it and replace it. You replace it with the normal thread. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and join the side panels with the center panel. So after joining the three panels together, this is how it's looking. Don't forget to also notch the dots, notch that joining. You also join the lining. Remember, the center piece for the lining is just the normal one. There's no gathering, everything is just the normal one for the lining. Can you see the normal thing that we cut out? All right, so you also notch it, and after notching, you iron it flat. You can see you iron your seam allowance. You open the seam allowance with your iron. Can you see? Same thing with the lining. So the next thing I'm going to do is to insert my breast cup on the lining. Like I said earlier, it's optional. You can just pad your lining the normal way you used to pad your bustier without the cup. All right. After that, the next thing is to fold the bodice into two. That is the main dress. Fold it into two this way, and at the upper part, from the center, you measure 1.5 inches downward. From the center, you measure 1.5 inches downward. From here, you measure 1.5 inches downward, and then you blend it to the armhole side this way. Then after that, you cut it out. So after cutting it out, you notch the center this way. That's the center of the neckline. Notch it this way. Then you take the lining, you match the right side of the lining. This is the lining. Match the right side of the lining together with the right side of the main body, and then you pin them together at the center. Pin them together at the center of the neckline this way. And then you're going to sew close the sides, leaving the armhole. Then you sew close the neckline. You leave the other armhole too, and then you sew the other side seam. All right, so I'm starting from the neckline. I'm going to stitch the two of them together with 1/2 inch seam allowance. When you get to the midpoint, you keep your needle in, and then you pivot the fabric. Just rotate the fabric, and then you sew it to the other side. When you're done, you notch the center of the neckline. You cut it very close to your seam, but you're not going to cut your seam. Then you just notch every other part this way. So the next thing is to sew close the side seam, and you do that with 1/2 inch seam allowance. So when you're done, you bring it to the right side, and this is how it looks. All right, so we are going to be working on the sleeve now. This is the sleeve. First, you're going to sew, you hem the upper part, fold it twice, just a tiny little sewing, both the upper part and the down part. So after that, you measure 1 inch downward from the beginning like this, and then you just roll it into a straight line this way. You will also do the same thing for the bottom part. Just measure 1 inch upward from the bottom part, and then just roll it into a straight line. After that, you change back your bobbin into the elastic thread, and then you are going to stitch it. Don't forget, the right side of the fabric will be facing up, so you're sewing on top of the right side right now, and the elastic thread is underneath the machine while normal thread is on top of the machine. Hope is clear. And you do the same thing to the down part. You can run the same 2 or 3 times so that it can be strong. All right, so this is the sleeve looking all beautiful. So we'll move forward to the back. This is the back. The first thing you do is to sew in your dart, both on the lining and the made fabric. When you're done with that, you match the right side of the fabric together with the right side of the lining, and then you sew close the neckline, also the zip allowance side and the side seam, and then you turn it to the right side and iron. So the next thing now is to attach the sleeve to the body. So just take your sleeve and then you join the armhole on the sleeve together with the armhole on the dress, right side to right side, and then you stitch together with 1/2 inch seam allowance. When you're done joining the sleeve to the front, this is how it looks. So take the back, you also join it together with the sleeve on the armhole side. So after that, this is the front of your dress. So match the main dress with the lining very well on the waistline, and then you sew the two of them together so that you can relax well. Can you see? So the next thing now is to close the sides. So you are going to be taking your measurement from the zip allowance line. The shock for the zip allowance is still showing. So you measure on the armhole line, you measure towards the side seam this way, your bust measurement divided by 4 minus 1/2 inch. Then on the waistline, you measure your waist measurement divided by 4 exactly, and then you connect it together. You do the same thing to the second side. After that, you close the side. So you can decide how you want the down part of your gown to be. Me, I'm doing it exactly like it's on the picture. So I cut out a long fabric that measured 3 times my waist circumference, and then the length is the remaining length for my gown, and then I just pleated it around the waistline to form a box pleat. Alright, so this is how it's looking so far. So I'll complete it with the box pleat like I said. You can decide how you want the down part to be. It mustn't be like exactly on the picture, or you know. After making my pleats, I use my lining to turn it on the waistline. So the next thing is to close it together on the zip allowance side. You just measure 9 inches downward from the waistline, and then you sew it all the way down. Then after that, you fix your zip. And that's it. Your dress is ready. Hope you like my fabric choice. I tried looking for the exact one they used inside the picture, but I couldn't get, so I opted for this one. Hope it's as beautiful as the other one. Well, I think it's more beautiful though. Let me know in the comment section what you think about my fabric choice. I think I made the best choice. That'll be the end for the class for today. I'll see you in my next tutorial. Please, if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please kindly subscribe and also hit the notification bell. And also, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. I'll see you in my next tutorial. Bye.